Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Lisa Brown, Vice President, Advancement and External Relations with Memorial University. Yay! So nice to be here for so many reasons. We're going to start this evening with a land acknowledgement. The lands on which the Memorial University campuses are situated are on traditional territories of diverse Indigenous groups, and we acknowledge with respect the diverse cultures and histories of the Beothuk, Mi'kmaq, Inuit, and Innu. We're here because of alumni engagement. Thank you so much to all the folks who put this together. And we're here because of a love of reading, right? And we have so many authors in this province who are so talented, who not only write from this province, but write about this province. And now we have another one, the happiest man in Canada, as Margaret says, Alan Doyle. So delighted to have you here and to be with you.
Thank you.
We're so fortunate to have such a strong reading literacy culture here. And I remember as a young girl waiting for the bookmobile. Anybody remember the bookmobile?
Oh my God.
Not just me, I hope. You know,
Betty
that
Hammer.
orange, yellow bus. Oh my God, that was so fantastic. Reading Nancy Drew books, and then when I finished those, going to Hardy Boys. So that's why we're here, to talk about books and reading, and particularly the great books of Alan Doyle here. So, and we're not only have in the presence of so many musicians, but we have a second excellent musician on the panel, Sean Panting. Yay, Sean.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Sean is a MUN alum as well, a BA, and musician, actor, singer, songwriter, the whole thing. And you know, every time I look at you, I see Walter from Republic of Doyle. Sorry.
No, that's okay. This is where the suit jacket came from.
I also love that he served on the CBC morning show as investigative troubadour. And I bet you gave that title to yourself, didn't you? Because that is such a great title.
Well, you know, somebody had to think
Someone
something
had
up.
to do it, yeah. So 20 years or so working against the clock to write songs about current events in these panting under pressure. So that's great news, because there's going to be lots of pressure here with the book club. So I'm going to send it over to you, and let's have a good time here.
All right, magnificent. Thank you for coming, everyone, and thank you, Lisa Brown. And you did a great job memorizing your title. That was good.
Thank you. I've been practicing
It's a lengthy
all
one,
day.
and it's new, and we appreciate that. And I'm really happy to be here tonight. And anybody who's been to these before will know that the host regularly is Angela Antle. So those are fairly large shoes to fill, even though they are not literally very large. There's an excellent panel, and I know you're dying to hear everyone's opinions and questions and whatnot. And I'm gonna read the bios down for you guys, because I don't want to miss any of the fantastic details. In addition to Lisa Brown, who's Memorial's new Vice President of Advancement and External Relations, as well as, and she didn't mention this, the 2020 Alumni of the Year recipient. Probably should have mentioned that.
It's like Eric.
We also have Memorial alum, there's loads of them, Gemma Hickey, BA 03. There you go. A multi-award winning international author and celebrated human rights activist from Newfoundland and Labrador, who's made headlines worldwide as an advocate for the LGBTQ+ community and survivors of religious institutional abuse. Gemma's highly acclaimed memoir, Almost Feral, Breakwater, 2019, chronicles the, count 'em, 908-kilometer walk across the island of Newfoundland and the uncharted emotional terrain traveled within. So that's not nothing. Nice. Delighted to have you here. We also have my fellow BA 92 grad, Perry Chafe. Might have seen you in the breezeway. A Canadian television showrunner, writer, producer, and songwriter. He's the co-creator, showrunner, and head writer for Republic of Doyle. Never heard of it. An executive producer and writer for the Netflix Discovery series Frontier. Didn't cast me. As well as Koch. As well as Caught, a limited series based on the great Lisa Moore's award-winning novel of the same name, and on the new original CBC series that's filming all over town and snarling up traffic everywhere, Son of a Critch, which will air, yes, that's worth some applause,
Thank you.
Son of a Critch, which will air January 2022. And just to make us all feel bad, he is currently penning his debut novel, which will be published by Simon & Schuster in 2023.
Oh.
So,
Oh, thanks.
he's a keener.
Thank you, Sean.
I put you in mine, just saying. I put you in my books, just saying.
That's true. That's true. There is one Alan in there. I don't know which
Book
one.
fight, book fight. I think it's going to get great. This is going to be great. Directly to my right, we've got Brenda O'Reilly, publican of O'Reilly's Irish Newfoundland Pub, voted Canada's favorite bar by En Route magazine, and why wouldn't it be? Yellow Belly Brewery, Frugalstein's, and the Old Courthouse in Harbour Grace. She's no stranger to the pub scene, with more than 35 years of experience in tourism, celebrating our culture through food, music, traditions, and people. She's currently planning a regional tourism destination project in the historic town of Harbour Grace. Brenda O'Reilly.
Oh, yeah.
And I also want to commend you on not bragging that you're my neighbor. That's nice. People, you didn't want to gild the lily there. That's nice. Okay, and yes, that's right. Yes, co-mother of our cat, who we'll get into that later. We'll talk about it in the car, Brenda. Okay, and now, the man of the night, the man of the hour. Most of you probably don't know a whole lot about Alan Doyle. He is a bit of a shrinking violet, so here's a few words about Alan. Fellow BA 92. 92 was a good year.
Woo. Good year.
That's right. Let's see. Let's see here. What do we got? Actor, yes. Producer, best-selling author, oh yes, right, and lead singer for Newfoundland's beloved Great Big Sea. Alan has 4 solo albums under his belt, though you'd never know it. Has been touring the world with his ace 6-piece band for the last 7 years. Doyle's latest release, Rough Side Out, debuted number 2 on the Billboard Canadian album chart. Yes, bye. And number 1 Canadian country album upon release. He's also released 3 best-selling books to date: Where I Belong in 2014, A Newfoundlander in Canada 2017, and All Together Now in 2020. That's the book that we're all looking at this evening. And presumably he's going to write a book about this event and all of us. So amidst all these projects, Alan has found time to write music for and appear on Republic of Doyle. Again, never heard of this show. He's guested on the Murdoch Mysteries. He's appeared in 2014's Winter's Tale and 2010's Robin Hood, which was deadly. Doyle hails from Petty Harbour, Newfoundland. Known to my children as the home of Chafe's Fish and Chips and very little else. Petty Harbour, Newfoundland formed Great Big Sea in 1993 with Sean McCann, Bob Hallett, and Daryl Power, in which they fused traditional Newfoundland music with their own pop sensibilities. Their 9 albums, double disc hits retrospective, and 2 DVD releases have all been declared gold or platinum and have sold a combined 1.2 million copies in Canada. I can relate.
Really?
Wow.
Sounds like a lot.
Wow.
Wow.
What's that?
Welcome, Alan Doyle. Yeah, I know.
Thank you very much. That sounds like a lot when you put it all together like that. Jeez. I also, by the way, built a deck, and my sister Kim is here. I built a deck in my backyard last March that is still standing. I couldn't believe it. But
We'll
it is still there.
write that in, will we?
Thank you. Thank you
Excellent,
very much.
excellent. Put that in.
It is 6 inches high. Yeah, thanks, Barry. Jesus. I noticed it's going to be right.
All right. Well, enough of this frivolity. We're going to start off by asking you to do a short reading from the book.
I will do that right now. I picked the one to do a quick reading from All Together. I mean, just about the book quickly. This book, unlike the other ones, the other 2 books I wrote on the road primarily. Almost all of them I did it on the road. Just because it turns out writing books is an excellent thing to be at when you got 9 hours between sound check and gig, and not to go off your head. This book was quite different, of course, because I was sort of scheduled, if you will, to do a different type of book with Random House Canada for the third book, but it involved a bunch of international travel that, of course, became impossible when the pandemic hit. So in May, well, the last few days of April, I guess, of 2020, right? Yeah. Scott from Random House, Scott Sellers, asked me, he said, I think it would be good if we could put out a funny book from you in the fall. It would be, I think it would be well received kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So like he said, I said, this fall. And he's like, yeah. He said, when would you need it? He said, I would need it by the 1st of June. And he said, is there anything you could do? And I was like, I don't know. And so I said, I could probably write just a kind of a random storybook. I could probably just write something that doesn't necessarily need a through line, but almost like a reader of just random stories that are either meaningful to me in some way, or funny, or moving in some fashion. Something that I would consider, I would probably tell at a night at the pub. Is how I kind of put it. It was like, well, if we're sitting at the Duke, for example, and thank you very much. See that? Who is that angel? What stories I might tell there, and as I described it to Scott, who's from Ontario, that one of the magic times in St. John's is to be like jammed into the corner at the Duke, or name your favorite pub, O'Reilly's, or my current favorite is the Underbelly, as Brendan knows, and because I love St. John's so much, and all it's the great vast views of its downtown, and to be a part of it, and there's nothing better than to go then to a windowless cavern dungeon in the bottom under George Street. But and just the way St. John's is a talking culture as much as a songs culture, I was very surprised when I went on the road, like for the first time, to go to a bar or whatever in Toronto, or in somewhere in Ontario or West or whatever, and to go into a bar, like what was called a pub or something, and to be met by like a maitre d' or something, and say, where would you like to sit? I was like, what? I was like, I don't want to sit anywhere. Like, I want to wander around the pub, and where would you and your group like to be? It's like, I came with them. I don't want to talk to them. If I wanted to talk to them, I'd stay home with them. Like, but you know what I mean? Like that, and I thought that happened everywhere. I did. Like I thought that everywhere did it that way, but they don't. And that's one of the magic things about the pub culture. And St. John's not the only place that has a pub culture like it. Lots of places do, but lots of places don't. And I just assumed everywhere else in Canada did, but they don't. And that's what's so awesome about a night at the Duke. And I just randomly picked a story, and I'm not sure if this is the best one to tell or not to start, but this is really just a way to give an indication of what kinds of stuff I put in the book, because I wanted to do a kind of a broad, wide variety of stories, that some from my childhood, some from like my life on the road, in the band, and some from my, teenage life where I had never seen anything, and the first airplane I was ever on in my life, I flew from Petty Harbour to London, Heathrow. So the first city I ever saw in my life was St. John's, and the second city I ever saw in my life was London. And that was a day. And and there's other ones about being in a band, and there's other ones about being a dad in a band, and what that's like, and all that stuff. So, but this is one I just figured I'd pick. And I'll divide it. There's kind of a longer chapter in the book, but I'm not going to read it all. But I'll start it, and then I'll skip a section, but I'll explain what happens in that section. But this one is called, which is probably regrettable, the Frenchman and the Bird.
Social media's blowing up right now.
I know. Quotes. Give me back my money, or I'll take your bird and you'll never see it again. I was serious too. Standing at the edge of the Thames under Westminster Bridge, Big Ben pounding noon in the cold, hard light of day, I was face to face with a con man who had all but successfully scammed me out of my last 20-pound note. He had my money, but I had his bird. Give me my money, I shouted, my 19-year-old Petty Harbor voice echoing off the stone walkways and bouncing off the bridge as a small lunchtime crowd of locals gathered to witness the standoff. Please, monsieur, do not hurt my bird. I regret writing that like that now, actually. I think about it. Please, monsieur, do not hurt my bird. Oh, he was definitely playing up his gentle old Frenchman, the fraudster. I stared him down because I was doing God's work. My money back or the bird is coming with me. Now, what happens over the next few pages is I describe how I left Petty Harbor, to fly to go to meet my brother Bernie, who was staying, and this is one of the reasons I picked it, I guess, was staying at the Memorial University campus at Harlow in England. And I guess, did I say what year it was? Kim, what year would this be? 1987 or 88 or something like that? Something like that, yeah. And I flew over. I describe here how I flew, for my first time leaving the country, flew overseas, first airplane, first train ride, first everything, freaked out when a train passes in the subway, couldn't believe it, saw a taxi with people driving on the wrong side of the road, and went underground on a train, I'm dead serious, and came up in Piccadilly Circus at 7:45 in the morning. And I sat underneath one of those lions, and I just looked at people for 2 hours, and just like, before we took a train out to Harlow. And over the next, week or so, me and my brother bombed around London, and we went to Dublin for about 50 hours, and I never slept a single wink until we had a great time, of course. And on the way, we decided what would be a great thing to do, of course, was to go to save money. We didn't have a hostel on the last night in Dublin. We just drank until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then took the bus, I guess, or however we got down to, is it Holyhead? Is that what we call it, down in the where you get the boat? It is, right? In south of Dublin to go back to England, and then we took a bus, and I fell asleep on this bus, and anyway, arrived back stunned, if you will, in London, and we had to make our way across London at, lunchtime, and to go get the train station, we were going to get a train back to Harlow. I had not slept since Thursday night when we arrived back in London, late Monday morning. We stumbled out of the bus station and zombie walked past St. James Park towards the Houses of Parliament. Bernie pointed to a side street at the end of the park. Prime Minister lives down there, he said, if he wants to see it. No, all I wanted was a bunk. We continued heading towards the train station that would take us back to Harlow. But as we walked past Big Ben and under Westminster Bridge to the Thames path, a timid yet tempting voice spoke to me from the shadows. Une photo avec l'oiseau? A picture with the little bird? What? I could not even muster politeness. A small, somewhat frail old Frenchman stepped into the noon light. He looked like a mix between Fagin from Oliver Twist and Geppetto, the old fellow who built Pinocchio. On his shoulder sat a tiny red and yellow bird who calmly and quietly perched, appearing to await direction from its trainer. Fagin's thick accent was heavier than Quebecois, but he spoke so slowly that it was not hard to understand him at all. A souvenir to take home, no? Just 20 pounds. And I mail you a picture with you and the bird and the clock tower too. 20 pounds. I was so sleep deprived I could not manage to comprehend a foreign language and currency at the same time. He pointed to my wallet, and in my haze, I took it out. He was so gentle and kind that I could only assume I should do what he said. My wallet unfolded, and he pointed to the one and only note in there, a 20-pounder. And he continued quietly and peacefully inquiring like a massage therapist might as you were registering at a spa. You are from Canada? He said, pointing to the maple leaf on my bandana. Beautiful country. What is your name and address? I was transfixed by the bird's gaze. He stared at me with one unblinking eye, his head turned in profile. I was so hypnotized by this perfect little creature that I did not notice myself answering the Frenchman. Alan Doyle, box 45, Petty Harbour, Newfoundland, Canada. Ah, Terre-Neuve, great friends to us in the war. Already under the hypnotic spell of the bird, I was so surprised that he knew all about Newfoundland that I didn't notice he had reached into my wallet and taken the 20-pound note. I will send you 2 pictures for a nice souvenir. He held the note up to me and pocketed it, then placed the little bird on my shoulder. Click! The camera sounded particularly old. The bird jumped from my shoulder and onto my head. Click! With that second sound, the bird jumped back on the Frenchman's shoulder. Merci, he said, and turned back to the crowd. Perhaps it was his departure, or perhaps it was the fact that I was finally unlocked from the bird's mesmerizing gaze. But in a second, the spell I had been under was broken. I shook my head a couple of times and turned to see Bernie looking at me in bewilderment. What was all that about? He craned his neck to keep an eye on the old man, who was quickly disappearing into the lunch crowd on the banks of the Thames. Some old fella said he'd send me pictures with the bird. I was still not really awake. Did you give him your last 20 pounds for that? You know he's not going to send you anything. There's probably not even film in the camera. I did not want to believe what was blatantly obvious to my smarter, wiser, and well-traveled older brother. He took my address, though. As I spoke, I saw the scam I had just fell for. Did he write it down? Again, Bernie with the smart question, I just hung my head. I don't know, to be honest. You just lost 20 pounds. Bernie turned to continue our walk down to the train station, amused by my foolishness, but not completely prepared to let it all go. No effing way. I had not even finished speaking as I turned back to the noon crowd and ran to catch the cheater. What are you doing? Bernie shouted. I'm getting my money back. I pushed my way through the crowd like I was in a spy movie, searching for the detonator as the seconds counted down. I found the Birdman a short distance down the river trying to scam 2 more innocent people in his perfectly convincing trickster way. I was having none of it. I did not leave Petty Harbour and the island of Newfoundland for the very first time into my life to be had by this thief. This trip was my coming-of-age party. I came here to prove I was smart and worldly and not to be shown that I could be taken by the scammer and his seductress bird. Hey, give me back my money, I shouted as his next victims and all those around could hear me. Why not broadcast this interaction for all to see and hear, I figured. I would be the hero of the story after all. Pardon? The old man said. He turned to me, and as he did, I lifted the yellow and red bird from his shoulder and held it in my hands. Give me back my money, or I'll take your bird and you'll never see it again. Please, monsieur, do not hurt. Please, monsieur, do not hurt my bird. French Fagin looked to be caving now as he reached for his pocket. My money back or the bird is coming with me. My Bayman hands clenched his bird like a vice. By now, Bernie had caught up and was startled to see the standoff I had created. He pushed his way through the circle of people. Jesus, Alan, what are you at? The Frenchman handed me the 20, and I figured I was about to deliver my hero line of the movie in my mind. I had finally defeated the bad guy and would deliver the catchphrase that would most definitely make it to the trailer. Nothing now, Bernie. Nothing now. I held my 20-pound note in one hand and released the bird with my other. It jumped back onto the shoulder of the Frenchman. As I strode away with newfound swagger, I could not understand why so few, well, none in fact, applauded. We had another few days in Harlow and the greater London area, and I learned so much and had still more first than I can tell in this story. What I can tell you is that about 3 weeks later, I walked back into our kitchen back in Petty Harbour to the familiar smells. Oh yeah. To the familiar smells of Mom's bread baking in the oven. Bread day, yes, bye, I said, loud enough to announce my presence. Yes, Alan, honey, that'll be out in 10 minutes or so. You can have it hot. Mom's voice, music to my ears as ever. Wicked, I said, and sat in my usual spot at the kitchen table while Mom stirred a pot of beef stew on the stove. A boiler of white potatoes sat idle next to her. Home. Oh, Alan, honey, a letter came for you in the mail this morning. As I looked up from the potato boiler, Mom stood holding a well-traveled, faded white envelope with what was clearly a Royal Mail stamp. Who's that from? I had no idea and hurriedly opened it. The next thing I heard was Mom's voice. Jesus, Alan, honey, what is it? You look like someone who just saw a ghost. I did not answer. The shame shut me up. I stared at 2 color photos of me on the edge of the Thames, under the big clock tower, a lovely yellow and red bird on my shoulder in one photo and on my head in the other. I've been to London many times since, and whenever possible, I walk down to that spot under the bridge by Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament. It remains a popular busking location. I never found that old Frenchman again. But every time I stroll through it, I get a surprised and delighted cheers from a singer or player with a hat and a few scattered coins before him as I lay a 20-pound note and pause for what must look to be a little too long before I nod and stroll on. The Frenchman and the... And that photo is in my attic right now. And I am wearing my St. Kevin's Warriors jacket.
That's masterful use of the word bird repeatedly. just, I can picture you writing that and going, no, oh, there we go. Yeah. Also,
do not hurt my bird.
I don't know if folks at home or if indeed people in the room, as mesmerizing as the bird story was, were seeing the pictures scroll by. Some tremendous rock and roll shots of Alan through the ages.
They're gone.
Some quality PV amplification. I noticed. PV, that's right. Sounds bad, but never die.
Oh, come on.
There you go. Low. We'll fight about it later. Exactly right. The book is billed as like a pub in a book, and it really does have that feel of just sort of telling random stories. You feel like you're talking to your friends, talking to your pal Alan, which is great. I just wanted to mention at this point that viewers online, and I'm looking at this camera up here, and I'm looking at that camera. I'm not sure where the other cameras are because my glasses are fogging up because you're all so gorgeous. Online viewers, you can type in your questions at any time, and Heidi, who is back there behind the camera, so you cannot see her, will read them out for us. And for the in-studio audience, that's you. This is a studio, by the way. We're going to have a question period at the end of the show, so all of your finest bird questions, please hold them till the end.
Sean, if I could just add one, because you said studio, which I find interesting. One of the things that is notable about where we are and is directly below this room, I think, or might be right there. I can't remember where exactly we are in the building. Yeah, just below us, yeah. There's where the, I guess where the, what do you call it, center is now, right? The Genesis, thank you, yeah. Genesis Center is where, when in 1994, Great Big Sea did our first record out in Dermot's basement, like lots of us did, and it was awesome. And then, but when we got signed to Warner, we needed to do it like super professional now, you know, like in a real studio and stuff. And of course, we didn't have one in St. John's. And, but we've been on the road so much, we didn't want to go on the road and do the first record. And we just figured it might shag up the, you know, like shag up the vibe if we went to the mainland to do the first record, you know, from the Newfoundland. We should do it in Newfoundland, right? So Danny Greenspoon, who you must have met with, produced Spirit of the West and all that kind, and came to Newfoundland. He said, we got to find somewhere to set up a studio. So we said, yeah, okay. So he was here. We rehearsed at Sean's house for like a week or whatever, and he left. And we'll find some place by the time we come back. And where we found was when this was still the Battery. Yeah, right there. Yeah, when the Battery Hotel was still going. We just happened up here, and I can't remember who the manager was at the time or whatever, and said, do you have any empty space in the hotel that we could, like, I don't know, we'll give you. So you can just have it. They gave us 2 floors of that right there, and we set up like a bunch of ADAT machines and a desk and, you know, recording set up there and a couple of little, used the offices for like isolation rooms, if you will. And you wanted, so Danny Greenspoon kind of fell from Toronto, kind of took it, you know, on spec, if you will, that we would find somewhere, some old warehouse or something to record when he came back. And when he came back, that's where we brought him. And he opened up the curtains and went, holy shit! Like, this is your studio? So that's where we recorded the up record and the play record. Literally, those 3 windows was the control room right there. That's God.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And when EMAD's company, what was it called? Blue Drop, it's called now, right? It was called Zedcom or something before that? Zed
It was
Tech or
Zed
something?
first.
Yeah. Their first office was there. Like right after we finished recording music there and whatever, they moved in there in the late 90s. And EMAD still has, like, you know, like the board, like the actual, like, masking tape with like kick drum, Sean vocal, Alan vocal, When I'm Up.
Nice.
That's God. Yeah. It's so cool.
All right. Well, that's an excellent piece of St. John's history
It is,
there. That's pretty
so
cool.
filmed an episode of Republic of Doyle here, but
It's all about you. I don't want to bring that up. I don't want to bring
No,
that up.
please,
Sean.
Perry. Just
I think you were in it too, Sean.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty
Not a
sure I
big
was.
deal. I'm
Pretty
gonna-
sure I was. So we're gonna get into questions, and some will be live and in person, and some of them will be on video. I just want to let you know what I want you to be spooked when the video comes up.
Okay.
So some are going to be on video, and then we'll get to questions from people in the room, which will be grand. I now have a raft of studio-related questions, but my first question is this: I would like you to tell these fine people, why are you the unofficial spokesman for Scotland's Red Roof Inns?
Yeah, I could have read that story too, probably. One of the stories that's in the book is, I don't remember what it's called, but it's basically tells the story of how in, I don't know, 2002 or something, Great Big Sea got a gig opening for a band how I describe them, they're like the Blue Rodeo of Scotland. Band's called Run Rig. They had a huge career before that in mostly in the UK, Germany, but a few other places, not so much on this side of the pond. And their lead singer had left in the late 90s, if I remember correctly, to go run for politics, I think, and Bruce Guthrow from Cape Breton actually replaced him. And so Bruce's first tour as Run Rig's lead singer, we were the opening band, and I'm pretty sure Bruce had a lot to do with that, which I'm grateful for to this day. But so we went over, and it was about 2 months, like back when we would go on the road for that long, because they were doing like 2-3 week stints, and they were going to just go back to Scotland, but we couldn't afford to fly back to to Newfoundland. So we stayed over for like almost 2 months. And so it started in Scotland, and like in Dundee or something. And we played like Dundee and Falkirk and Stirling and all the big cities too. And then we also went all over England and Wales, Cardiff, and it was amazing. And then we went to Germany and stuff after. But the Red Roof Inns particularly applies to the UK part of it. And right around, I don't know, do you remember like, I don't know, let's say like 95 or something, when everywhere in Atlantic Canada got a Comfort Inn on the exit highway? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like everywhere, and they're identical. You might be in New Minas, and you might be in Yarmouth, and you could be just outside Moncton. But they are identical. Like you don't know if you're in Truro or Sydney. And well, that happened in the UK sometime a few years before we got the Run Rig tour, and there was this place, what I call in the book I call the Red Roof Inn, and God help me if it's actually called the Red Roof Inn, because maybe I'll get sued. But these places are identical, and much like the small Atlantic Canadian towns, they are not just physically cookie cutter the same, they are in the same spot in every town. Because they're, those are tight towns, like with, historic downtowns, and then there's a highway exit that just had barely enough land to put a new hotel that wasn't like an old B&B that's in all those towns. And so it looked the same, and the Run Rig guys were on a bus, if I remember correctly, but we were driving ourselves around in a van all over, England and Ireland, all over the UK. Anyway, so the days just became the same, as I describe it in the book, like we would drive for a couple of hours or whatever, never big long drives. And we would arrive at, say, 2 in the afternoon or whatever in next town, Birmingham or, Edinburgh or Newcastle or somewhere, And we would pull off the highway and we would go into the rectangular parking lot of the Red Roof Inn. And I'd walk in and some red-haired fella named Duncan or Dave with a blue golf shirt on would say, "You're the band from Canada." I'm like, "Hey," and he'd make a hockey joke, and every day, and we would check into the hotel, wander around town, sound check at 5 o'clock, do our gig, wait around, sing songs in the encore at Run Rig, back to the Red Roof Inn, drink, bed, wake up, next one, Duncan, Dave, "Hey, you're the band from Canada." Identical, and it was, they had these sort of diamond-shaped plastic keys. And they gave you one every day. Here's your, are you Alan? Yeah, you go. It's like, yeah, it's good. Well, here's a story that's not in the book now. I can tell this story now because we don't do it anymore, but we used, back in they was so similar and so sort of the same every day that Murray Foster filled in for Daryl on part of that tour because Daryl had just had a baby. I remember this. And the reason why I tell you that is because we would check in and had been checking in hotels for the previous 8 or 9 years, 10 years or whatever, under, how bands check in under assumed names. You know what I mean? Like, no, we wouldn't check in under Alan Doyle because 5 cousins would phone you, calling you a prick for not having tickets for them and stuff like that. And are we allowed to say prick? Anyway, in quotes, it's in your show, I should be able to say, but
And I only did that a couple of times.
Thank you.
I'd like you to stop harping on it.
Wait, so it was so the same that we would check in, we chose Spinal Tap names, right? I was David St. Hubbins, wasn't that Kim? I was David St. Hubbins for a decade, right? Sean was Nigel Tufnell, and such, right? Forever, right? And it was so same that it was before we all had cell phones, right? So somebody back in Ontario was trying to get a hold of Murray Foster. And they called the hotel saying, "I'm, such and such, I'm looking for Murray Foster." And said, "I don't have anyone under that name," right? And so they said, "Hey, sure, he's traveling with a band from Canada." he goes, oh, a band, yeah, they checked in already. You must be looking for Derek Smalls. And they connected them with Murray's room. Swear to God. That's a bit of an in-joke for the bands. But anyway, it was always the same, got the same little ticket, same little key. And I walked down the hall, and it was kind of like the kind of hotel is kind of Swedish, I think of. I don't really know how to say architecture stuff, but it's kind of like an IKEA thing. You know what I mean? Like maybe the way the Alt is or something. Like it's very simple, with like birch, kind of simple table or whatever, and a bed that's
You got to put together yourself.
Yeah, that's right. And you go in. It was always the same. It was like little bathroom, bed with the birchy thing, a table, a chair, and a chair right here by the head of the bed. Done. Always exactly the same. Lay your bag there, going blah, blah. Anyway, this one night, I know exactly where it was, and I know exactly when it was, because that is not to say I can remember the date off the top of my head, but here's how I know. It was definitely in Inverness. It was like 3 weeks into this 2-month tour, and it was the night that Ray Bork won the Stanley Cup with the Colorado Avalanche. Because we stayed up watching it, drinking in the lobby. I think about the time difference.
Yeah,
Denver, Inverness, right? So it was one of those days where I ran in, same thing, 2 o'clock, flicked the bag on the bed, ran out, back to sound check, run around Inverness, beautiful place. Came back, didn't go upstairs, just, sat there. All the Runrig boys came back and we all watched the ice hockey, as they kept calling it. Now we're gonna watch the ice hockey with the lads. And so we watched it and they didn't really know anything about it. It's like, so cool, Ray Bork gonna win the cup. And so anyway, we stayed up late, to make a long story short, and which I'm not so good at it, apparently. I reach in my pocket and I take out a key, and I believe it said 301. Sure. So I walked upstairs and I go click, 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 and it doesn't work. I go, no big deal. So I take my 301 key, I walk back downstairs to the desk, and I go over to Duncan, who was just excited, or Dave, who was very excited about the ice hockey. And I said, man, my key's not working. Oh, sorry about that. So he takes the 301 key, gives me a 301 key. Thanks so much. I go back, get on the elevator. I walk up, I open the door to 301, and I walk in, and I come back by the bathroom, and I walk over, and I go by, and I describe in the book how as I'm sitting, just before my arse hits the chair, and where my knees would touch the bed, it's so small. I just feel like somebody is here. And I don't know how I knew this, maybe a shadow or something. And all I can do, and my arse has not touched the chair yet. And I remember just sort of tilting my head out. And all I can see, I swear to God, all I can see is this beautiful blonde missus lift her head up and look at me. And I'm like, and I become aware that between me and her is Shrek. Like the biggest Scottish lumberjack that you could imagine. And he's snoring away. And she's sort of reaching for glasses or something. And my arse is still not down. And my knees are getting so close to the friggin' bed. And if I touch the bed, I'm gonna wake up Shrek, and this is not gonna be good. Anyway, she says out loud, love. And again, now my arse is about a paper sheet above the chair, and my knees are the same distance from the bed. And she says it again. She says, love. He goes, And she goes, there's someone in the room. And I go, and I can tell you at that moment, I've heard the whole thing about, your life flashing before your eyes, but it did not happen to me. My whole death passed before my eyes because I was going to die now. And there was, I don't know, anyway, the guy says, "No, love, go back to sleep." And as he spoke, I could feel his breath on me. And I stood up, and I didn't do it quietly either. I just booked it. Stood up, grabbed my bag, walked out, closed the door behind me, and once the door closed, I could hear them like ruckus in the room, and I fucking ran as fast as I could down for the elevator. And I was holding my 301 key, and I was about to go down and haul Duncan or David out over the goddamn counter and give them the gears. And I was like, what the fuck? You put someone in my room or something? And I was like, what? And when my hand went down, I felt, I reached in my pocket, 206. And I realized the 301 key that I had was from yesterday in Liverpool or something. And I went to 206, and I didn't sleep a freaking wink. But we continued to stay in the Red Roof Inn for the next 2 or 3 weeks on that tour, and I always made sure I gave the key back the next day. That's how it goes.
I've never been assaulted by Shrek, but I've had similar. Thinking, it's the touring experience does become a bit like Groundhog Day after a while. Okay, well, all right. So now we know. Lisa, do you have a question for Alan Doyle? Perhaps about his book, perhaps about Shrek, perhaps about God
Do we
knows
have the
what.
stand now? Is this like a lieutenant governor thing, like you're at New Jersey? What do we do? Like we're.
A bow, curtsy, I would accept
Sure.
either. Yeah,
Madam.
that's good.
I'll take a knee.
My question is around the differences or similarities between writing a song versus a story. And I'm curious to know if you feel like you might have had even more freedom writing a book or a short story versus a song.
Well, the thing I always say, and it sounds like a flippant thing, but I don't mean it as a flippant thing, that the hardest thing about writing a book is writing a book. And I mean that seriously and sincerely. Because compared to writing, a song, like we've done many times, writing a book seems like a mountain, man. Like it just seems like, I feel like, maybe an episode of TV is like it as well, where it's like an episode of television is a few weeks of your life, I assume. I don't really know. But it's like producing a record is a week of your life, or writing a song is a day of your life, or almost everything I do takes a day or so, or a week, maybe 2, max. And the first book, I remember on month 6, going to Nita, my editor friend at the time, and going are we working on the same thing we were working on in November? Are we writing Ben-Hur here? What are we doing? It just seemed so long, man. And I'm not good at that. I'll chase a red light up the road, so I didn't find it freeing at all. Okay. I quite found it quite the opposite, and to try to maintain some kind of arc of attention, I mean my own, for that long, I found very difficult, and I've only done 3 of them, so I'm still I'm serious. I'm still quite a novice at it, and it's I don't really find them very similar, to be honest with you,
Okay.
because I find that, especially the more songs I write, the more I'm content to write about something tiny. You know what I mean? I'm totally happy to write a whole song about the 2 grapes that are left on this plate. I'm dead serious, and I'm convinced more and more that the best poetry and songs are about the 2 grapes that are left on your plate. And they're not about anything else, I don't know if I could write a book about the 2 grapes that are left on the plate. You know what I mean? So there's a specificity, I suppose, that I wouldn't have known about when I was writing songs first, when you're 19 or 20 trying to write songs, that the ones that you're not trying to get a girl with, the ones, where there's only 2 kinds of songs you write when you're 18. To get a girl, to tell a girl how mad you are you broke up with her, or she broke up with you, I should say, or you know, to heal the world, man, in this one song. And this song is going to be about space and how, you know, I'm making a statement in this song here that's will change Earth, you know, and as the more I write them, the more I kind of come to appreciate that songs can be about the two grapes on the plate, and that's awesome, you know, and that's fine. And maybe if I wrote as many books as I do songs, I'd come to that as well. But it's literally only the length of the labor that is daunting, and it's the biggest difference, you know. And it doesn't come as naturally to me either, you know. So, but I mean, I like doing both, especially like having books done. I talk about books writing like going to the gym. You know, people say, do you like doing it? It's like, no, I don't. Like, I don't like writing books.
But you like having.
I like having books written. That's great. And I know I should write them. Should be at something, you know what I mean? And so it occupies a weird place. But yeah, I like doing both of them, I suppose, ultimately. I certainly.
Are you up for a little video question?
Thank you. When you said that earlier, I was like, Sean, I don't think it'd scare the shit out of me if a video. But if you hadn't just reminded me that a video question or something was, I would have shit me drawers. I'm telling you right now.
Well, glad I reminded you, I suppose. Okay, so our first video question is from Memorial University's president and vice chancellor, Dr. Vian Timmons.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Vian Timmons. Welcome
She is.
to our Coastlines Book Club. I am so disappointed not to be able to be with you this evening. I so wanted to. I have read and loved the book. Altogether now, A Newfoundlander's Light Tales for Heavy Times by Alan Doyle. It was exactly what I needed during COVID. This is really a fun book. I loved reading about you, Alan, in the root cellar, the work you did with your brother, your family stories, meeting Anne Murray, your movie debut, all of the fun things that are in this book. Here's a question for you. You gave us this book as a pick-me-up during the pandemic. What did you do for yourself this time to take care of your own mental health? So enjoy the evening. Everyone, read this fabulous book. It is a Canadian story of a Newfoundland icon. Take care.
That's the president. Holy frig. The book, no, it's a fair question. And like I said earlier, briefly, I have found that writing books, especially on the road, and I guess in the pandemic as well, is that it's kind of a practical thing. And this is kind of minutia that might be boring, but especially since I'm on the road in my own band, kind of as opposed to being in Great Big Sea, because we had 4 singers in Great Big Sea all the time, and on the road I'm the singer guy now, so I got to sing 27 or 28 songs a night, 6 nights a week. So here's what I should do. I should get up every morning at around 10:30. I should sleep as late as I can. I should get up. I should exercise, wash myself, eat food at 2 o'clock, and then I should go to sound check at 5 o'clock, nap, concert, food, bed. That's what the day should look like. So there's a gap there, right? Between after I finish eating something and 5 o'clock sound check. It's usually 3 hours. Sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 2. But what should happen in that time is I should do something. Now what I want to do is go with 7 or 8 people and do something fun and active and go hike around the hill and bring a bunch of buddies and talk my face off and do so. But here's the rub. I got to sing. So I got to do what is the most difficult thing in the world for me to do. Shut up. And what most people would, a sensible person would probably do is go back like to the hotel or something and sit by yourself in the hotel and read a book or chill out or, you know. But those people who know me closely know I would rather dig a ditch from here to Stephenville with a plastic spoon than sit in a hotel room by myself on the afternoon. I'm dead serious. Like, and you know, Vianne mentioned mental health. I completely believe that the most dangerous place in the world in the music business is a hotel room by yourself.
Yeah.
Like it is awful.
Yep.
And that's where all the awful stuff happens. So I try to get out of it. I can't do it. I don't want to go there. I don't want to do it. Like the only thing I want to do there is go to bed. And I haven't turned a television on in a hotel room, I'd say, in 20 years. I don't even know where they are, you know, and it's like, and so I have to go do something, and that's productive, but I should be restful because I'm old now, and I can't go hike around Mount Royal in Montreal between 2 and 5 because I got to do a concert that night, and I should not talk. So writing books is perfect. I'm serious. It's go sit in the coffee shop or in a dressing room or somewhere. I'm doing something. It's productive. My mind is active. I'm at something. I'm not by myself in a hotel room, and it makes me feel good to do it. So writing books is a huge mental health thing for me on the road. And the other thing during the pandemic that, to answer the question really, was just busying myself with projects, you know, like and making projects like myself, and I know Maureen is here somewhere, and myself and Maureen and the Enniscals and the Fortunate Ones and Rachel and the Ones, was it Maureen? Somebody else. We did a record sort of over the internet, like right away when the pandemic started, and then we worked on a record for the Enniscals that's going to come out soon, and then worked on my own record, and then just did stuff, and you know, and then I did build a deck in my backyard that is, as Perry says, literally on the ground, because I was afraid to build it any higher than that, to tell you the truth. And no, it's true, man. It's like you wouldn't, man. This is not really part of the question, but there's 2 things in my backyard. There's a deck, thankfully that's on the ground. About 3 summers ago, remember me and my little fella built a tree house, right? And there's a roof on it and everything. Remember a couple of weeks ago when there was a hurricane coming? And I was looking at it going, holy shit. I wasn't worried about my own house written that bad, but it's like, me and Henry built that. Like, that's going to end up down Bannerman Park for the week. Like, there's not, but it stayed anyway. But yeah, I mean, I think activity is one of the pathways to, you know, better mental health. Like, I believe in physical activity, mental activity, do stuff, you know. And if you're lucky enough to have friends to do it with, that's even better.
Well, interesting segue that you made there yourself. So I'm here sitting across from Perry Chafe. So how long have you and Perry Chafe known each other?
I met Perry when I was 3.
Right on.
So that's some 22 years ago now. And, no, Perry's from Petty Harbour as well, and myself and Perry we met before kindergarten, went through every grade of school together, graduated university the same day. Literally, I kid you not. What do you tell them? We wore the same.
Oh yeah, we wore the same tie. We only had one tie. So in our graduation pictures, we actually have the same tie on. Not the same time, but as we individually took the pictures.
We lived together.
You
We
passed
lived
the tie
together
back
all
and
the way
forth,
through
is what you're
university. Here's how I like to describe it. We lived together every day through university. We wore the same tie. When we went to Sears, was it Sears we went to get the
Sears,
pictures taken?
yeah.
And
Quite nice. Yeah.
it was good, yeah.
Nice day.
And when he got married, I stood next to him, and when I got married, he stood next to me.
Nice. That's
Now we're
Same tie. Yeah.
different ties at that
Different
point.
tie.
So you got a book-related question there, Perry?
Oh, me? Oh my God. I thought I was here.
That is why you're here.
Oh,
This is just so,
didn't know.
by way of just clarity, but I think I'm glad you asked that question, Sean, because this is the most terrifying part of this whole evening for me. You know,
It's my most enjoyable. I've been waiting 47 years for this. I guess my first question is, who do you think you are? Second question is a math-related question in the second part. Do you have a calculator with you, sir? You're going to need one. Oh my God, I don't know if we ever had a sensible conversation in our life, so it's...
twice.
Twice we did, yes,
Twice.
Actually, twice. No, it's... what tie are you wearing?
That was conversation one.
I don't know. I guess it's about, in the book I found it interesting about your time away from the show, or from playing gigs and all,
Yeah.
away from the stage and all. one of the things I love what you do is you go collect stories. You collect them and you bring them home, and they turn up either in songs or stories like in your books, which is fantastic. But I remember a time in the 90s, especially, it was easier for you to like live away than live at home.
Yeah.
So I always, what kept you tethered here to always want to, make sure that this was home, even though it was easier at times for you to live in Toronto or some of the bigger centers? Yeah. And has the pandemic sort of reinforced that or changed any kind of view of that?
Yeah, no, it's interesting you should say, because one of the things that I find interesting, if not kind of incredible, is that not only have I never lived anywhere else, it's never occurred to me to live anywhere else. Like, it's never, and it's so weird, isn't it? Like, and you're the same, and I was just like, it's kind of like, well, why do you live in Newfoundland? Well, why do I breathe air? What do you mean? Why is 5 + 5 10? I don't know, because we do. It is. What do you mean? And it is, I pointed out in one of the books about how hard it is to be a band, a touring band from this city. And it is, without question, the hardest city in Canada, arguably in North America, to be a band from, right? It's like, it's because being, especially in the early days, as you say, in the 90s with GBS, is like, what a band needs more than anything else is easy access to other towns, right? Other towns of a certain size to play to. And the way I describe it is always like, okay, so let's compare two bands. Let's compare a band from St. John's, Newfoundland, and a band from London, Ontario, right? And they need access to towns, let's pick a random number, 30,000. Need to leave our town and go to the next town of 30,000 people or more. So the band from London, I would say, so draw a 5-hour driving circle around London, Ontario. And then draw a 5-hour driving circle around St. John's, right? In the 5 hours around London, Ontario, the band can be, Buffalo, Toronto, probably pass through 20 or 30, 40 or 50 places that are 30,000. Guelph, Elora, what have you, that are of a certain size. And of course, the answer for the band from St. John's is none, right? And then, okay, tell you what, double the driving circle. Seriously, double the driving circle. Now you're driving 10 hours, and the band from London can go to New York, and everywhere between London and New York, and the other way, and Detroit, and all of Michigan, and probably Wisconsin and Illinois, and the number of towns of 30,000 that the band from Newfoundland travels through is still 0. How about this one? Double it again. And now 20 hours drive. The band from London, Ontario, can go everywhere in North America except the Pacific time zone. Everywhere. They can drive to Florida. And they pass through, 140 or 150 million people. The amount of towns that the band from St. John's has passed through at more than 30,000 is still 0. The band from St. John's is just driving somewhere south of North Sydney on hour 20. We are,
yeah.
And so that was the situation when Great Big Sea started, as you say, and I think one of the things was because we were playing Newfoundland music, and I really, Sean and Bob and Daryl really, because they were just a little bit older and wiser than me, were very, and I think Bob had lived away already, and they were big on it. They were like, not only do we want to stay here, it will be harder and more expensive, all that stuff, but it will be good for us if we stay here. And so, we did. And I'm just so glad that we did, because I think because I was the youngest, if they had said, if you want to be in a band, you got to go to, you got to go to Montreal or Toronto or something, I probably would have done it, if they had said. But they were, I kind of credit them ultimately with being the ones to start that and then keep it, And I mean, Bob moved home. Bob moved home to be in Great Big Sea. He was living in Barrie at the time.
Well,
And, yeah.
it's good news for us, eh?
Yeah, it's all right. Yes. Sorry, Lena, am I going, are you too long? Am I going too long? It's Lynn's waving in the background.
I'm
sorry, okay.
I'm busting in. I'm busting
Thank
in.
you. Yeah.
I'm cracking the whip. We're continuing to move on. So,
Oh, we're live.
Gemma, have you formulated a question?
Well, I got to tell you, I prepared a list of a few questions to make myself sound really smart. You know what I mean? And all I can think about, Ellen, and I swear to God, I've never asked this before of anyone. I just turned 45, and I don't have many firsts left. But how big was Buddy's bird?
I got to tell you, it was
Quality
terrifying.
bird question.
It was terrifying, and it was the single eye, man. And I regret phrasing it that way now, but it was intimidating. Ain't no doubt about it.
We're keeping it classy. That's what I like about this event. Is the way we're keeping it classy. You got a follow up non-bird related question? Are you good? Or?
Yes. So, a commonality among the works of Newfoundland writers, I find, is that we write from a sense of place. So you reference Petty Harbour throughout the book. How much has grown up on the east coast of the Atlantic not only carved out a sense of identity for you, but also how your stories are shaped?
Yeah, I think I talked about that a lot in the context of songs, and I credit again other people with it, and I think we'll all agree, and not just the artists amongst us, and the writers, but I think everybody, I cannot overstate the importance of being a 10-year-old and the biggest television show in our lives being The Wonderful Grand Band. And Ron Hines being the writer in it. And so when you're 10, you're not reading piles of novels. You're looking I wanted to be in a band for a living, and you're looking for funny stuff, and you're looking for stuff on television, and the biggest television show in my young life wasn't from LA or New York or England or whatever. It was from here. And they told our stories, and they told our jokes, and they did our songs cool, and I really believe, and I've heard other people say it, like other writers and other songwriters and stuff, that was an unbelievably influential contribution to the province, because I think we all just instantly turned inward and more honest, right? Because I guarantee you, without Wonderful Grand Band, 100%, Perry knows this more than anybody. Without Wonderful Grand Band and Newfoundland traditional music and all this stuff, I would have had spandex on, a big Tony trying to be in Whitesnake. I'm telling you right now, I would have been. I loved it so much. I'm serious. I would try to be in Poison. So happily. All the songs I would have written would have been about girls on the hoods of cars and stuff. In my beach town in Malibu, that's what I would be writing about, because I think that's what I would have to do to be, Eddie Van Halen or whatever. But of course, because of Ron and the Grand Band and Codco and then later, I remember reading the story of Bobby O'Malley. I don't know, I wasn't very old. I was probably, 18 or 19 or something like that. And it was the first book I ever read from here. And I read it and went, that's from Petty Harbour Road. The stuff in that's about Maddox Cove, and not only can we can write books about here too. And I think that those lessons were really important. And again, I can't overstate it, because I can kind of brag about it because I had nothing to do with it. You know what I mean? Like it just was. It happened to me. You know what I mean? And all of us. You know,
Well,
and it's big.
Yeah, and I mean, and as wonderful as that is, and I completely agree with you, I would love to explore the alternate reality where you're wearing leopard skin spandex and
Oh, I
singing
would've
songs
done
about you know, I'd like to see that. We gotta move on from there. I just gotta snap out of it. Brenda O'Reilly.
And my first album would be called, if I was in the Whitesnake Band, How Big Is Your Bird? Definitely.
Stealing it for the next record.
You imagine?
I don't have to imagine. You just said it out loud. Brenda O'Reilly, you've known Alan a while. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. And Alan said, "Oh, this is great. It's a whole night about me." And I said, "Oh, I guarantee you, I can make it about myself pretty quick." Yeah. So, Alan, I've got lots of questions for you because the book was fantastic. Well
Thank you
done.
so much. Thanks for getting it.
And humor, obviously, is a big part of who we are as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. It's a big part of your life. It's obviously a big part of your influence with WGB and stuff like that. But we all find like Newfoundlanders love humor. So how do you think, how important is humor to live here and for the promotion of the province?
I talked to Mark Critch a while back about this other book, actually, that we were going to be doing, and about how maybe, how like after a few generations, people who live in the Himalayas their lungs adapt. And the amount of oxygen that they physically need changes, that they actually, after a few generations, can live on like whatever less gallons or percents. I don't know nothing about science. But and I wonder if that's possible here, that we need it. Like we do, the reason why we have a sense of humor here is because you got to. And I'm serious, and I talked to Mark about it, you. Yeah, like you need a thick skin, and you need to find joy in stuff all the time, and I don't know if that's true necessarily, but like I wonder if as a people, that we are funnier than most other peoples because we have to be. And we need it the way the crowd in the Himalayas don't need oxygen or something. I don't know.
I think it's too how people see us. They love us as people.
Yeah.
When you ask tourists what they like most about Newfoundland, it's the people, and I think it's because we don't take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah, and I also think that there's something about homegrown entertainers, right? And again, I always try to think practically, why would it be and I say this all the time, especially in the States, about how, one of the things in America you hear all the time about man, if I could just get out of this town, and make it to Chicago. It's like, buddy, it's right there. It's like 111 kilometers. Like, I could walk there today. Like, what are we talking about? If we could just make it over there. It's like, there, just go over there. Like, that's it. And I'm oversimplifying, but that sort of, it's kind of like an Americana dream, it's like a John Cougar song or something. But and whereas for us, nobody is coming, right? Friday night in that little town that the guy wants to get out of, 111 kilometers from Chicago, sometime in the 1950s, Dean Martin showed up on a bus. He did. And he went into the town hall and went, and everyone laughed and said, this is great. And then they got television and went, this is awesome. Because it was, right? Well, guess how many televisions had Dean Martin on it in Petty Harbour in 1950? None, right? And guess who was coming to sing for you in Petty Harbour in February in 1963? My Uncle Ronnie. That's it. I mean, so we write our own stories, we sing songs, we dance in front of people, we do plays, and I think, again, practically, because no one is coming to do it for us.
Well, I got to ask you a story about, the story of Russell Crowe, or how you met Russell Crowe in the book is fantastic, of course. And, and I love that fact that it goes back to your music.
Yeah.
Like that's, how it all started. But of course, and I'm really pleased that you brought Russell to O'Reilly's because it made us famous. But when is there going to be a sequel for Robin Hood? We need to see Alan and Doyle again.
That'd be awesome. I was talking about it earlier today, that I think that movie, listen to me talk about, and my joke got ruined because I was in a couple other ones, but for years I used to say, when you've been in as many movies as me. I kind of think it was a little bit ahead of its time. Like right after we did that movie, like Game of Thrones started and all this other stuff, this kind of medieval, Renaissance. Like imagine if that movie came out 10 years later and wasn't a movie, but a 10-episode miniseries on Netflix. It would be huge.
Is that what we're going to see?
It would be great. No, I don't know. Geez, I'd be like Alan and Dale's uncle now. By the time it came out. But it was an amazing experience, and it was like, that in a lucky life. That's just one of the big bullet points, right? Is like finding out that the Gladiator fella likes your songs, and then being at the NHL Hockey Awards while he's there, like, oh shit, I'm meeting him. I don't care. And sort of, say, hey man, how's it going? Oh, sorry man, my name's Alan, like, type thing. And and then just striking up a friendship, and then when Perry and the gang were doing Doyle, we convinced Russell and Scott and Kev to come, who were like Robin Hood and the Merry Men. What I think is the biggest coup in Canadian television history, by the way, that you guys convinced Russell to come, and we had that summer here. It was such a laugh. It was amazing. And
The garden party.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
All that stuff. It was amazing. Like and yeah. I would do that again in a second. I don't have enough time tonight, I'm serious, to describe to you in retrospect how amazing every day is to be surrounded by the most artistically and technically talented people on earth for a whole summer. Like everybody on that movie was the best at their job on earth. Like every horse rider person was the best horse rider. Every person who put leather stuff on horses was the best leather put around horses person. They flew them in from New Zealand. And the person then who makes the stuff that's on the horse look old, they rubs dirt on it. They're the best ones at that from France. They come over. I'm serious. And then the guns that go on there. Well, they're from the gunnery, of course, up in Liverpool. They make medieval guns. They're just like it, and they all work. And then the archery guy is the guy who is the archery guy in the world. And every day, you're just constantly surrounded by these amazing circus of incredibly gifted, talented people. It was just amazing. In a way that no other project ever could afford or do. It's amazing. Loved it.
We had a GTO.
Alan had his shirt off a lot.
Correction, you had a couple of GTOs.
Oh, that's right.
We're going to take some questions from the folk in the room. Janet Herron is here with her Freddie Mercury
So cool.
microphone. If you want to if anybody has a question, if you want to raise your hand, maybe.
If you don't have questions,
They are being shy. Oh, we have a question.
Is the cheese free? Is my question.
I'd just like to hear more about your uncle.
My Uncle Ronnie?
Oh, Reg.
Oh, my Uncle Reg in the book. Oh, yeah. We call him Reg Kim in the book. Kim knows exactly who we're talking about. That's not his real name. But Uncle Reg is the character in the book who, of course, we lived in Petty Harbour, of course, growing up. And my mom is from Marystown. So as many houses like would do at the time, every time like a relative had to come into town, to go to hospital or something, or to go to school, or to go to some appointment or something, they always stayed at the house. And I would talk about like sort of charity or whatever all the time and where it comes from or whatever. And Kim knows this as good as I do, that it was just a default thing. It was never a discussion about it, that whenever any of those people came to our house, Mom and Dad gave them their bedroom. And they pulled out the couch in the living room and slept on it. That was a given. Like, that wasn't any discussion. It was just like, and I never thought anything of it till I was about 40. Swear to God, it's like, and so there was always, people, my aunts or my nan or whatever from Marystown, someone had cancer or somebody had, some more common ailments, would come in and stay at the house while they were getting, treatment in St. John's, or someone was getting the hip done or something, or whatever, Mom and Dad were always on the pull-out in the living room, and there was someone up in the bed, upstairs. But then, on top of all that was Uncle Reg. I'm going to be very careful not to say his real name. It's going to be hard. But it wasn't. He was like a magician or something. Like, he was about 9 feet tall. And the Doyles, I joke all the time, and nobody gets it, but I always say, I'm quite tall for our people. And we're the hobbit folk of Petty Harbour, we're designed to live waist high in 13-degree bog water and sing long songs with no choruses. That's what we do. And we're from elven folk, don't visit us very often. And when they do, it's quite special. And when Uncle Ed would come, he was this tall, my mom, shit! Good night. When Uncle Reg would come, Ed, or whatever, would come, it was like, because they were tall. My uncle, Bill, whatever, Jesus. When the Pittmans were tall, right? In my mom's family, they're all tall people. And when me and my brother, especially, were little, we thought he was like, it was like having Gandalf or something come in. It was just awesome. And he was typical Rounded Bay fellow, who would talk about trouting this morning. Boy, I was trouting this morning, but it wasn't much to him. I caught 4 pan-sized ones, It's like, what do you got? Bernie used to say, what have you got, a hubcap for a pan? What you got a garbage can lid? What are you frying fish? And but he was one of those guys. But he was always, he had a sawmill on the hill in Petty Harbour in Marystown. And he used to, one of those, like you see around the bay all the time, every other house, every 4 houses has got a sawmill that somebody figured out how to make, out of a truck or a boat or something, and his was an old Dodge truck that he had backed into the, this garage. And what I remember about it, I think I wrote about it in this book, I think I did, was because Bernie was smart and an engineer type brain, even when we were young, and he had this truck backed in, and he had the whole arse of it sort of took off, backed into this garage, like shed or whatever. And what he would do was he had the, the transmission, the drivey part of the truck. I play the mandolin for a living, you see, and the, hooked up to a blade, right, to the belts, and drove a blade that cut wood, right? And, but what he did was he started the truck and took a rock and laid it on the gas pedal, and then walked into the door and sawed wood. And I remember my brother Bernie going, Ed, Reg, do you have an emergency brake on this or anything? And I remember Uncle Reg looking at him, and it was the first time it ever occurred to him that he might need some kind of emergency brake on this thing. So anyway, needless to say, very quickly, Uncle Reg started disappearing. He cut his thumb, he cut his hand, cut his fingers off. Didn't he, Kim? And like, I don't know if I can do this properly. My vision of him, Kim's gonna laugh, but was that this is the way my Uncle Ed would toast. Hey, man. This, right? And I remember just, again, like being a little kid, this was just so awesome. Like, it was so great. And yeah, so and then he suffered another injury later where a saw blade went right through his face, and then he got cancer where they started cutting bits out of mince eye. And we used to joke forever that, geez, Ed, you're never going to die because they're building you somewhere else. There's like more parts of you. But he was amazing, you know, like we loved him so much, you know, especially being a little boy, like with that coming into your house 4 or 5 times a year on the run, you know, playing cards, wham, it was like, this is the greatest.
There got to be more songs about this guy.
Oh, he was awesome.
We have another question back here.
Prized at sea shanties this summer, and the other one's for Perry.
Yeah.
When I was reading the book and I read about the Grey Cup, and I thought, and he looked at you, and it was probably an oh Jesus moment. How many oh Jesus moments have you guys had together where he said, let's do this, and you went, oh Jesus?
About 6,800.
It's like, yeah, that was an oh Jesus moment. It's funny, it's one of many. Again, I've known Alan for 47 years now, and he's always been like it. It's like, even I remember, actually, I do remember him the first day in kindergarten being that guy. And immediately we had to be separated because we sat next to each other because I just couldn't stop laughing at him. It was foolish as all but God, but there's been many, many moments, and I got to be like, I kid around about fact-checking everything in those books, but it's actually more that he's leaving out that's in those books is like just to protect the guilty. It's like, wow, okay. But he seems to attract it, and it's just, it's his spirit. You know, he's one of these guys, he collects these stories to tell them, but it's just a magnet. You know, people are naturally sort of drawn to him. That's on the record. Off the record, no. He's always been that guy, and there's been many, many, many of those Grey Cup moments.
But I think we're both like lucky, you know, because Perry likes to say, Alan will do anything, and then he shows up one day and said, we just convinced CBC to give us a television show that's like Rockford Files. And I was like, of course you did. Like, and you know, but I think one of the things we both kind of benefited from as kids, kind of in retrospect, is growing up in a town where we could kind of do whatever we wanted. You know, and like we got up I was telling people today that, you know, when you grow up in a little spot and you're 10 and you leave at 7 in the morning with a bucket and a knife, imagine now sending your 10-year-old out with a bucket and a knife, saying don't come back till you got $50. That was in 1978. Like, you know, and we did that every day so happily.
Yeah.
And then finished by 1 or 2 o'clock, and then go get, you know, go rob crab apples, take 10. So I remember this, like when we went to school in St. Kevin's, when we went in grade 9, and kind of discovering that, like, geez, these crap don't even have jobs yet. Like, what are they doing all summer? And it just completely by luck. I think it, like our young lives kind of, you know, made us just participate in the economy or whatever, or like, we're like, oh yeah, what are you doing? Whatever there is to do. Like, you grow up in Petty Harbor, you got to make it for yourself, but then you come out in town or whatever, what are you doing? Well, sure, whatever there is to do. Great, let's do it all. And like, and I was very surprised at the sea shanties, to answer your question, but it also makes me feel very old because I've heard that if you stick around long enough, like stuff you used to do will become cool again. And I was like, oh no, this is my 3rd time around the sea shanty. Yeah.
I'm going to ask a question over there. Do we have time for that video question, do you think? Oh, hold on. Okay.
Yeah, Yes, Sean.
Brenda, did you have
Yeah.
We
one?
do have
Yeah.
time for a video
We're
question?
gonna have
If you had one, I don't want to.
Magnificent. Okay, yeah, we got one more. We got one more question, and it is it's from the legendary Fergus O'Byrne.
No way.
Oh,
Shanties.
yes.
Well played.
Congratulations on the new book. Now, as you and I both know, making a go of it in this business of music, especially sustaining a career over the long term, it's not easy at the best of times. But it is a passion that some people feel they must pursue. So, what would be your best advice to a young musician, regardless of the genre of music, who makes that decision to follow their passion and pursue their dream of being a professional artist?
That's Fergus O'Byrne, ladies and gentlemen. Holy
Yeah.
shit. That's cool. I wish I had a cool answer. You know, Fergus, of course, Dermot and all those guys are heroes of ours, and I don't know, like, one of the things I'm very cautious about doing is giving advice up to younger people or whatever sometimes, and because when people say, you know, what would you tell? It's like, I think what they mean, I know it's not what Fergus means, so I'll answer Fergus's question, but when other people ask this question sometimes, I think what they mean is shortcuts. What shortcuts would you tell us about? What could you tell me that would save me 4 steps, right? And I very, very honestly and always say there are none. Or if there are, I don't know what they are. I've never found them. And if you're in this for the right reasons, you won't ever look for them. You don't want them. And I always, like, you know, what would you, the question sometimes you get, you know, what would you tell 15-year-old you? Like, nothing. Like, I wouldn't tell him anything. Like, but, you know, if pressed to, you know, because, you know, I know what Fergus means. You know, Fergus is, you know, Fergus knows the road better than me, and I bet Fergus would say the same thing if I asked it of him. And he would say that if you love the work, that's all you'll ever need. Don't get in the music business to get rich. You'll never get paid enough money. It is not worth it. Don't matter who you are. You could be Elton John. It is not worth it. Don't get in it for the babes. There'll never be enough of them. Don't get in it for the drugs or for the time, or don't get in it for the fame. Don't get in it for... If you love the work, you will never need anything else. And so I would tell young people that if you love it, it's all you'll ever need. And if you don't love it, don't do it. Don't do it. And if you love it, it's completely possible for you to make a living doing it. Almost likely, actually. And it will also be the hardest job you'll ever choose, but you won't care. And yeah, I just, you know, so many of the, we have a friend, Scott Grimes. You know, he's one of the, yeah, he was one of the Merry Men. He's an actor friend of ours, been in show business for, I don't know, 40 odd years, and he's not 50 yet, you know, and I know I talked to him about it because so many like kid stars or whatever, especially in Hollywood, and Scott's been in the biggest part of Hollywood, you know, his whole life. And he still works and still does it all. And he and I had this conversation. He said as much, you know, it's just like, just want to work, you know, and like some days you're the biggest thing on the magazine, some days you're the third guy, but you're still working, and then you're on the magazine again, and then you're not, and then some other times you're doing this, and if you love the work's enough, you know, and I certainly, God help us I think that's one of the reasons the pandemic was so hard in a way, because the work that I love to do the most I couldn't do. You know, me and Maureen were talking about it yesterday or whatever. It's like when if you're playing, like if you're in an office for a living or something, typing on a computer, I don't mean to say my job is any more important than anyone else's or anything, but you know, if you're working at that setting and someone says, you gotta go home and do that, you go, okay, fine. I'll go home and I'll work, okay? But you're still doing this, right? And some people love this. Go home because it loved working, you know, whatever. So there's taking that person from there to here, there's so much that they miss, right? But take, you know, people like me or Maureen or whatever off the road, and that's a whole different gap of things that you miss, right? There's people that you don't get to see who you do this magical thing with, and you can only do it with them, you know, and you usually do it 140 nights a year. And then all, you know, that, so, you know, there's a lot to miss. And so, but if you love it, it will be enough.
Beautiful. That seems like the place to stop, hey? Thanks, everybody, for coming out. We got to wrap the evening now, but just to let you know what the next book in the Coastlines Book Club is going to be, it's Us Now, so you can I'll start reading. It's edited by Lisa Moore, and these are stories by racialized Newfoundlanders that are joyous, tender, hilarious, and heart-wrenching. Be sure to follow the Office of Alumni Engagement on social media for updates on that book and on the next Coastlines event, since this one was so deadly. And big thanks to everyone here at Amera Innovation Exchange, especially John Duff, our tech guru, for keeping the whole thing on the rails. So, good night, everybody. Alan Doyle.
Thanks for coming. Thanks, everybody. Thank you very much. Thanks for being a part of it. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Rock and roll.